Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today, we've got a discussion video, and I'm going to jump right into it. This is an idea that's been bouncing around in my head for quite some time. It's something I think about a lot, and honestly, it's probably been on my mind since the very earliest days of me getting involved in the deep waters of the EDC knife world. And it's kind of an abstract thought in some ways. As anyone who knows me well knows, I really enjoy overthinking things and really trying to get to the root of basically everything. And so I've thought a lot about this. It's something that's interesting, and I call it the end user paradox. It's something that I think we've all considered, but I don't think anyone has ever touched on it in any depth. And so I'm going to try and do it today because why not, right? Why not? So we've got a bunch of different knives out here on the table. Let's go ahead and start getting these out. We've got a Wee Minax. Love this knife. This is the most expensive knife on the table right now. This is a titanium frame lock with 20 CV blade steel. And these are now discontinued, but they went for about $260. This is a cold steel American Lawman. This particular version is not made anymore, but these are still around. This one is in CTS XHP steel with G10 scales, triad lock. These things go for around $120. Some places, a little bit less, certain other places. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, and the new ones have a S35V in. Had a little bit of a spacey moment there. This is the CJRB Pyrite. This has steel scales, AR RPM 9 blade, and these things start out at just under $50. This is the Civivi Picaro. This is a minor lock with D2 blade steel, G10 scales. These are discontinued, but you can still find them around certain places for under $50. This is the Schrade Divergent. It has a crossbar lock and G10 scales with a blade of 8CR 14 MOV. And this is a Case Knives rust lock. And these things have Case's True Sharp surgical stainless steel, which is something, and green jigged bone scales in this case. So we've got a lot of different knives here that have a couple of different demographics that they're aimed at, right? And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We are experiencing a time in the knife world that is completely unprecedented in human history. I know that sounds pretty dramatic, but hear me out. Knives have been with us forever. Forever. Since we first started using tools, knives were probably one of the very first tools we had. Homo habilis, Homo erectus were probably using knives, right? And now our species has just, we've always had knives. They are excellent tools. Excellent tools. We use them for food. We use them for protection. We use them for construction, for building. I mean, that right there, you're taking care of three of the main essentials of survival. Eating, shelter, and protection, right? So very versatile tools, very, very ingrained in all kinds of cultures around the world. Many cultures have very specific knife designs, whether these are ceremonial or whether they're designed for a certain type of agriculture, a certain type of hunting, a certain type of warfare. These designs really, really kind of encapsulate the essence of a civilization or a culture. And so where I'm going with all of this is knives are really cool, right? And not just really cool, but they're essential. They've been part of us forever. But only now in 2023, Are we seeing a point where knives are reaching some pretty dang amazing standards? Right? We're meeting some incredible tolerances. Number one, a folding knife. For a long time, that was kind of a revolutionary idea, right? You didn't have a fixed blade. You had a knife that was folding. It's easy to carry. You slip it in your pocket. You can have a fairly large blade and not, take up a whole lot of space on a belt or something. That's really cool. But now, look at all the different kinds of locks we have. Right now on the table, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different examples of different locks, right? And this one's kind of similar to the liner lock and the frame lock, but I've got a knife right here. It's got a different type of lock. I could reach around anywhere and grab a different knife with a different type of lock. That is a lot of innovation right there. We're also seeing some just mind-blowing performance of materials. We are coming out with some absolutely incredible steels. Steels that would have blown the minds of our ancestors. Could you imagine going back in time and telling someone who's coming west, yeah, so this is my Spyderco pocket knife and CPM S110V. This thing will hold an edge forever. This knife really impresses me. You guys know this is my size comparison knife. Do I have any sticky notes around? I do. Yay. I bought this knife like 2.5 years ago, and I do use it. I don't use it as much as I used to because if I'm going to carry PM2, I prefer my Tonto. And also, S110V is kind of a scary steel to me because I don't want anything to happen to this knife. I don't want to chip the edge because I know sharpening will be a pain. But I use this knife around, my apartment. I use this knife for breaking down cardboard every once in a while. I have used it pretty consistently over the course of the time that I've had it, and I've never sharpened it. And yeah, we've got a couple of areas. I've stropped it a couple times. Not sure if that did any good, but it's incredibly sharp. So yeah, that's 2.5 years of use. Of course, I'm not using it every day. Like I said, this is kind of just a size comparison knife now, but it does get used. That kind of edge retention is absolutely mind-blowing. What about stainlessness? We have steels that are virtually stain-proof. They will not rust. That is amazing. Or what about our super tough steels? We have steels nowadays that can really, really stand up to a beating, right? These are all things that would have absolutely blown the minds of people even 50 years ago. The technological advances in pocket knives, or just knives in general, are still going, right? We're still advancing this very primitive technology. Every day, we're pushing it further and further, seeing what its limits are, and trying to perfect humanity's most basic tool. And that's interesting. I've heard people say, I've met people who, I tell them, I'm carrying a pocket knife, and they ask why. Why do you need that? Haven't we moved past that? No, we have not. And of course, all of you guys watching this, you guys all know. A pocket knife is a great tool to have, and I would sorely miss having one in my pocket if I ever had to go a long period of time without one. But it's amazing that we're still using this technology, right? Okay, so I've spent 9 minutes rambling, just kind of setting the stage. What I want to talk about is the types of pocket knives we have available on the market right now, and why we have a little bit of an interesting paradox in the end users of these knives. And I'm going to be focusing mostly on utilizing our modern materials to their fullest capacity. Let's talk about MagnaCut. That's kind of the new kid on the block. That's the steel that everyone's excited about right now, and for good reason. I haven't had any MagnaCut yet, but this is one of the original Hogue Decas in CPM 20CV. I haven't had any MagnaCut yet. I would love to have some to test it out, give it a try. But from what I hear, it's a pretty fantastic steel. It's very well rounded. It's got fantastic performance, and I have really enjoyed seeing how many companies have gotten their hands on MagnaCut and releasing models with that steel. MagnaCut is incredibly stainless. It's got a respectable amount of edge retention. It's very tough, and it's supposed to be fairly easy to sharpen. Everyone wants MagnaCut. As an enthusiast, when MagnaCut was announced, everyone went crazy. Everyone wanted MagnaCut on their stuff. Everyone wanted MagnaCut. You know, ooh, I want that newest and greatest flavor, right? This has got to be the best. You know who would really benefit from the physical properties of MagnaCut? My dad or my grandpa. You know who will never buy a knife in MagnaCut? My dad or my grandpa. As a lot of you know, I grew up on a cattle ranch. I grew up, doing farm work and ranch work. Pocket knives were always a part of my life. And fixed blades too. Hunting knives, things like that. We like to have our own vegetables. We like to have our own meat. I like to be pretty self-sufficient. And part of being self-sufficient is having good tools, right? And knowing how to use them. So let's think about my dad. He's been on the channel a couple of times. He's a really cool guy. Hopefully I'll get on the channel one of these days again. But he's a mobile veterinarian. And he also, works on the family ranch. And so in his line of work, he uses his pocket knife hard. He uses it for a lot of different things. Everything from preparing his lunch to cutting open feed sacks, hay string. He's even done impromptu necropsies on deceased animals with his pocket knife. Notching ears for branding, or all these other things that might come up. Although my dad doesn't really like to notch ears with a pocket knife. Anyways. My grandpa, he was a logger, rancher, uses his pocket knife for everything. Uses it very hard. Puts it through some really, really crazy tasks. And I'll tell you, growing up, before I was in the thick of it with the knife community, I would go through so many pocket knives. My grandpa went through pocket knives. I saw. My dad went through so many pocket knives, and I saw. We would use them until they just fell apart, and then we'd get rid of them, right? Get a new one, Go into town, stop by the hardware store, the feed store. How's my pocket knife looking? Oh yeah, that's right. I broke it in half yesterday. Yeah, I need to buy a new pocket knife. Pick one up, $5. And I just kind of thought that was the way it was. And of course, as a kid, I also liked collecting knives. I had a lot of big machetes and stuff that I wasn't really using for anything. It was kind of mall ninja type stuff that I had around because I thought it was cool. So I always liked knives. But my work knives that I was using around the ranch, I would wear them out very quickly. And I have to get new ones. And now, being where I am, being, pretty deep into this enthusiast part of the world, I've been exposed to a whole lot of other things. Better materials, better build quality, knives that are built to last. These are not disposable tools. I repeat, a pocket knife is not a disposable tool. Okay? A properly made pocket knife is meant to last. It should last. Yes, things happen. And, yes, your pocket knife may, you may have to replace it. But it should not be something you replace very often, right? And it should be something that hopefully one day you're able to pass on to your son or your daughter. So, scoot those back. I still work on the family ranch when I'm home there. You know, during the summer, I like to work out in the woods. That's where my job is, like cowboy and stuff. And I have really seen the benefit of using, especially like cold steel knives. Man, I beat my cold steel knives to crap. You guys have seen all the videos. And I have seen a tremendous difference. You upgrade your steel, you upgrade your handle materials, you upgrade your fit and finish, and a knife will do a lot of stuff. You can ask a lot of this tool, and it will serve you, right? As long as it's built with a little bit of care. And so I have really tried to influence the people around me, the guys and girls who I care about, who I work with. I've tried to influence them and get better knives in their pockets because, unfortunately, I keep seeing things like this. This is a Gerber Swagger. We did a video on this. You can look that up if you want to. This is a crappy knife. This is the sharpening from the factory. Lock Rock. Yeah, just not a very well-made knife. And I see knives of this caliber in the pockets of working men everywhere. And it sucks because not only is this just crappy, there's no pride of ownership in this. And it's dangerous, you know? It's not even going to cut as well. So performance is lacking, the safety is lacking, and there's no pride of ownership. And honestly, pride of ownership is an important thing. I haven't talked about this on the channel, but pride of ownership is something that, especially recently, I have become very, very interested in. And it's something that... I just knocked over a bunch of knives. As a collector, you know, we get a lot of things that we think are really cool, and they bring us joy in the sense of, you know, oh, look at this really cool lock, or oh, look at this knife that's from my favorite designer, or things like that. And then you have knives where carrying them makes you feel good. Having them in your pocket makes you feel good. Using them makes you feel good. If you're out and about in your everyday life and something comes up, you need to do a cutting task, and you pull out your knife and you complete that task, and you put it back in your pocket with a smile on your face, that is worth something right there. And then you pass that knife on to your kid, your grandkid, your niece, your nephew. There is something to that, right? There is something to be said about pride of ownership. So we're not going to go real far into that, but you know, it is something that I think is important. So now comes the part of the video where I might say some mean things. And I want you guys to know, first of all, that I'm including myself in a lot of what I'm going to say. The people who will get the most out of the performance offered by modern materials are not the enthusiasts. Wait for the dust to settle on that one. And again, I'm including myself in that. And I'm not saying that enthusiasts just sit around and, you know, don't use their knives. I'm not saying that at all. I know a lot of people say that. I'm not trying to say that. I'm an enthusiast. I use a lot of my knives. You guys know from watching the channel, I use all my knives. But I will say, I mean, I've got a buttload of knives. Guys, I have a ton of knives. I've got way too many knives. And so I'm constantly rotating what's in and out of my pocket. And there are a lot of knives that I have not used to their full potential. I've got knives in 20 CV steel that I'm not sure how the heat treat is done because I haven't pushed that knife to the testing point, right? I use it and stuff, and actually this is a knife that I've used quite a bit, so this is probably a bad example, but you know, I use the knife and I put it in my pocket, I carry it for a day or two, a week maybe, and then, you know, I swap it out for something else. And especially when I'm here at college, you know, I'm not in the woods, you know, doing crazy things. I'm just cutting open packages, a little bit of food prep here and there. And, you know, I'm just swapping my knives around to, basically for review or just to carry it because I like them. And so I'm not really using them to their full potential. A lot of enthusiasts, if I were to take this knife, you know what, let's say this is actually actually let's use this knife. An enthusiast has purchased this We Knives Mine Axe. And I come along, and I'm the evil mischief fairy. And I go to his knife box, and I take out his wee mine axe, and I go, bippity boppity boop. And I change this blade from 20 CV to 7 CR. And I put back in his case, and I snicker, and I fly out the window. The next morning, will he notice? Will he notice a week from then? 2 weeks, a month, a year, right? Probably not. Probably not. Because as enthusiasts, we like the idea of performance, but the most tangible part of being an enthusiast is the design or the feel of something. So, same build quality. Ooh, that action. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful action. Look at the fit and finish on this thing. Look at that beautiful milling. Oh, I love it. The hidden screws, the geared back spacer. Perfectly centered. Nice pivot. Beautiful blade finish. Actually, this one does not have a beautiful blade finish. This is a bead blasty stonewash, and it sucks. But you get the point. As long as this knife has the beautiful action, has an excellent build quality, has all the nice little, whistles and frills, an enthusiast probably won't even know if the blade is swapped out for 7 CR. And again, that's not a bad thing, right? That's not a bad thing. But then you go and you look at what a working man's got in his pocket. So, excuse me. I have these 2 case rust lock knives. I'm actually sharpening these for a buddy of mine. And you can tell that these knives have been used. They have been loved and abused for sure. And Case, makes good knives. And this knife is, it's still together. Look at the centering though. Let's do what I could do. And yeah, when I give him these knives back, I'm sure he'll use them and love them still. But that edge I put on there is not going to last at all. And pretty soon, he's going to be like sawing through things. And thank goodness the blade is so thin, so that'll kind of help it cut even when it's dull. But that's dangerous, right? The materials on this knife will absolutely let him down. Now imagine if this was in 20 CV. And I sharpened it up for him, and I gave it back to him, and it held its edge for, 20 CV will probably hold its edge for 10 times longer than this basic simple stainless steel. That would be absolutely amazing to him, right? That would be a game changer. I want to talk, though, about why they don't buy, why the working man doesn't buy this type of knife. It's because it's not available to him. And yeah, sure, you can go online and you can order it, but who wants to do that? I tell you what, if I told my grandpa to go online and buy a pocket knife, he would laugh in my face. He would laugh at me. He'd say, no, why would I do that? I'll just walk down to Ace Hardware, buy a pocket knife. Although I guess for him it wouldn't be just walking down to Ace Hardware. He'd have to drive like 40 miles to town. But, the point stands. So even if they understand, I've showed knives, I've showed a lot of my knives to my grandpa and my dad. And they understand that these are a higher caliber of pocket knife. They understand that there's a lot more work that goes into them. They understand that the materials are better. They understand that it's overall just a better tool. But, you know, my grandpa, for one, doesn't really want to go and track one down. My dad, I've actually given my dad a couple of cool knives, and he's a little more open to it. But I do know guys who have made that step to go and purchase a high-end knife. And 9 times out of 10, it's a hunter, and they're buying a Benchmade. And, you know, you see your Benchmade knives at Cabela's and stuff, and they look at a Benchmade and they're like, wow, $200 for that? That must be the best knife ever. And they buy it, and they use it, and they're convinced that that's the best knife ever, and that they spent an appropriate amount of money. And I'm going to bash on Benchmade here a little bit. Benchmade knows this, right? I hate to bring it to us enthusiasts, but Benchmade's not making knives for us, really. They're not making knives for enthusiasts. They're making knives that they're targeting towards the more average Joes, the guys that are looking for a pocket knife, and they're maybe deciding that they want to buy an expensive knife because, you know, they want something great. Benchmade is making knives for them. So you walk into your Cabela's, you're a hunter, you know, and you want to buy a really good knife for the field. You want to have the top quality stuff. You know, you put a lot of money into your gun or your bow. You want to get something good to put in your pocket, you know, and so you go with your Benchmade knife. You buy something that you think is the top quality, and you pay $200 for a Benchmade bug out. And yeah, it performs differently than all of the crappy knives you've had in the past. It outperforms everything you've carried before, and you feel like your money has been spent extremely well. And you don't even know that that is a lot of money for a Benchmade bug out. I can't remember. I think it was a Cabela's. It was either Cabela's or some other outdoor store. I saw a Benchmade bug out on sale, and they were selling Benchmade bug outs for ridiculous prices. I think, yeah, $220, something like that. And it's a shame because, you know, guys will buy it and not know any better. They won't know that, you know, you can get a knife that has even better performance for a little bit less. And again, you know, it is a little bit predatory, right? It's a little bit predatory, but I'm not really bashing Benchmade because they are a company. You know, they're a business. At the end of the day, they have to make money. But you know, I see so many people in the EDC community. You know, Benchmade prices are ridiculous. Oh my goodness, they're giving us S30V in plastic for $180, $200. That's absolutely ridiculous. Do they really think they can get away with this? And the answer is yes, and they do, because they're not selling knives to us. They're selling knives to guys that are not enthusiasts, right? And so that's kind of the other end of this conversation. It's like, great, you've got a great knife in your pocket, but man, you paid too much for it, right? So I just want to touch on that really quick. It is interesting. You know, I sharpen my dad's knives for him. I sharpen my grandpa's knives because, I mean, they know how to sharpen knives, but I'm a good sharpener now. So, you know, whenever I'm around, you know, and they sharpen their knives. They take care of their knives when I'm not there. You know, of course, I don't see them all the time. I've, you know, moved out and living away. But, you know, whenever I come to visit, I typically sharpen their knives. And that's something that, you know, Gideon's in town. We're going to have him sharpen our knives. And I've tried to, like especially my dad, I gave my dad a Civivi backlash. And we've made a video on this. You can check it out on the channel. And my dad loves it. He carries it everywhere. He uses the heck out of it. And he can definitely tell, you know, we've talked about this, that it's a higher quality knife than he was used to carrying. And he can feel that. He can feel that. And it really is a difference. You know, when you upgrade from stuff like this that you've been carrying for 20, 25 years, and you get something that's actually built with a little bit of love and care, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. And I wish everyone could feel that difference. If a magic genie appeared to me tomorrow and said, I'll grant you 3 wishes, one of those wishes would be take all the bad knives out of everyone's pockets and give them good knives. Because I think it's important. I think it's important to have a good tool for anyone and everybody, right? As long as they're being safe and responsible with it and using it for its intended purpose and not nefarious shenanigans, right? So yeah, I've really enjoyed, exposing my dad to, what a pocket knife can and should be. And I mean, my dad, my grandpa, they carry case knives, they carried case knives, that's what they grew up with. And I mean, I love case in a lot of ways. I really do. But there's a lot of performance that's lacking, and they even know it. I know, like, a lot of people I know, a lot of family members or friends, they only use case knives as like kind of heirloom pieces or collection pieces. Like they're very common gifts in rural communities. You could give someone a case knife, and it's it's what you do, and they keep it forever. And it's a memento. And then, they use something else. I mean, a lot of people do use their case knives, but I'm getting off track. They just don't offer a whole lot of performance. But they have that reputation, right? And going back to the Benchmade thing, one of the reasons I think I see so many people buy Benchmades over like Spydercos, I think it's because Spydercos are ugly, but there's just like this reputation that Benchmade has built up. And I remember as a kid, I was like, oh yeah, Benchmade knives. I knew nothing about them. I didn't even know what the axis lock was. But I just knew that Benchmade knives that was where it was at, right? Benchmade knives were the top tier. They were quality. If you were going to buy a knife, you were going to buy a Benchmade. Like if you wanted to buy the best of the best, it was going to be a Benchmade. And a lot of people just have that mentality. I think Benchmade's worked very hard to, promote that image. And again, I'm not trying to come down on Benchmade, but I'm just saying, that if a non-knife person is going to spend a lot of money on a knife, it's probably going to be a Benchmade. A lot of times, non-knife people use their knives the hardest, right? So I have a little bit of a sharpening business, and no, I don't ask. I only sharpen knives for people that I know locally. But I've had a lot of my friends and people, have me sharpen their knives. And sometimes I do it for free. Sometimes I charge them. It depends on the situation. But one knife I have in right now for sharpening, I just want to show this on right now because it's kind of cool, is this machete. And this belongs to actually one of my professors. But yeah, he uses the heck out of this thing, right? The edge is all mangled up. It gets a lot of use. And it's not a very expensive machete, so I don't have anything to do with it. But I grew up, knowing how to sharpen and things, right? I learned how to sharpen. My dad taught me how to sharpen a knife. And so I could sharpen a knife and put an edge on it and use it. Of course, now I'm a lot better of a sharpener. And it's very important to be able to sharpen your knife. And I bring up the damaged edge on that machete. I bring up sharpening right now because I've been talking a lot about materials, about how we can get all this incredible performance out of modern materials. And I already know a lot of people are going to say, well, edge retention isn't the end-all be-all. And I agree. In fact, I'm someone that doesn't really prioritize edge retention super high. Usability is much better. So I really value toughness. If you chip your edge, I mean, that's nasty to deal with. But also ease of sharpening, stainlessness is very, very important qualities. And so this Gerber right here, yeah, this is incredibly easy to sharpen. Right? Incredibly easy to sharpen. Stupid easy. And that's what my grandpa does. He carries, with his knife, he uses it all day and it goes completely dull. Completely dull. And wow, I forgot that I actually stropped this guy after I did the review cutting. I almost cut my thumb. He goes home every night and he sharpens his knife. He sharpens his knife, and he's ready for the next day. Use it till it goes dull again, sharpens it again. And of course, you do that every day for a year, 365 times, maybe more even, right? Maybe you sharpen your knife multiple times. Pretty soon you just wear the blade out, and then you've got to get a new one. So, maybe some of these simpler steels, like the case knives, like this 7CR on this Gerber. Maybe that's actually what the average Joe needs. Okay, maybe. I can see an argument for that, but that doesn't excuse the crappy build quality. That doesn't excuse the dysfunctional safety features, right? And as we've been talking, price is very restrictive, but it's not just price. If a lot of non-knife guys are looking for a knife and they're okay with spending a lot of money once, they will buy what's accessible in a brick and mortar store. So we have price is one barricade, and we have accessibility as another barricade. Unfortunately, a lot of the knives that are most accessible to the average person are shit. Bad steel, bad heat treat, bad build quality. And that makes me so mad. Because the kinds of guys that really need knives, that really need them to last, have access to the worst of the worst. And that is basically what this whole video, I know this has been an incredibly long video. I may have to cut a lot of rambling out. Hopefully I'll stitch this into something halfway comprehensible. The people that need knives the most have access to the crappiest knives. And that's a shame. That sucks. But there is hope. There is hope. And one of the reasons that I decided to make this video when I did is because I recently finished filming my review of the Camillus Defy. And in that video, I go on a little bit of a rant about this topic. Camillus is a very interesting knife brand because they're making inexpensive knives. In fact, they're making very cheap knives. This knife was, I bought for $15. I see them around like $20 nowadays, but very cheap knife, but it's built well and it's built competently. This knife works like a knife is supposed to work, right? It feels safe, it feels solid, it feels secure. I would and have EDC'd this. I will continue to EDC this in the future, except for the pocket clip. Pocket clip sucks. See the video. But this is a knife that I picked up at a Tractor Supply. And so at Tractor Supply, those knives are really, really targeted towards, the kind of people we've been talking about. The non-knife person, right? The person who's not an enthusiast, they're not a collector, they don't really care about the technical stuff behind the knife, they just need a tool that works. Camillus is one of the only companies that targets them. Camillus makes very inexpensive knives, and the materials on this thing are not great, but honestly, they work. This steel here is 420. It held an okay edge. It's easy to sharpen. I love to see that. If you haven't seen the video I've done with Austin about his Camillus chunk, that thing is an absolute tank. Austin, he's a knife collector. He's got, cool stuff. He's got some really interesting knives. But like one of his favorite work knives is his Camillus chunk. And we were talking the other day. I saw him, over spring break. You guys saw the videos we made together. And he was telling me how, he's been, just trying to mix up his carry at work, carry some of his other stuff because, variety is the spice of life. And it's been hard because his Camillus chunk just does everything so well, right? He just doesn't really feel like he needs to carry a different knife to work. And that is awesome. If you can get a cheap knife that performs the way a knife is supposed to perform and holds up to abuse, that is what we want to see. And Camillus, they make a lot of knives that are very competently put together, that are safe, well-made, functional tools at affordable prices and in accessible locations to a lot of people. There are companies like Ganso that makes affordable knives, but buy these off Amazon. Again, people like my grandpa are never going to go and buy a knife off Amazon. It's just not what they do. And I wish there were more companies like Camillus. But unfortunately, it seems like they are an outlier. Let's take Gerber, for example. I talked about this a little bit in the Camillus video. Let's talk about Gerber. Gerber seems to be a little bit two-faced. It seems like there's two types of Gerber, especially nowadays. And I mean, there's other companies who are using examples of these, but this knife, Gerber did not make this for an enthusiast. Gerber made a bunch of these, and they didn't care if they were good or not. These are for the everyday Joe. Screw that guy. He gets shit. He gets a crappy knife. We don't care. And then they try to appeal to the enthusiasts, with things like their fastball, or the Slim Sada that are coming out with, or something. They've done a couple of higher-end knives, and they don't always hit the mark. Let's be honest. Gerber's a little bit hit or miss sometimes. But it feels like Gerber makes knives for different people. It's like, ooh, these are for the enthusiasts to enjoy. We want to make good knives for the enthusiasts. We want to impress the enthusiasts. And we just don't care about the everyday guy. Just whatever. Just give him a crappy knife. He won't know the difference. And that's an awful mentality. Give everyone good knives, right? Yeah, okay, maybe, give the enthusiasts more fancy materials, your carbon fiber, or your, do some fancy inlay work, or do stuff like that. But make competent knives for the regular guys, right? So I'm going to bring this full circle. I'm going to try and close up this video. The main idea, the thesis of this video is sometimes it feels like there's a big divide between the knife enthusiast community and, I don't want to say the knife user community, but like but regular people who need knives, right? And obviously, if you're working construction, I don't think you're not going to go out and spend $300 on a Riot. No one's expecting you to. Why would you do that? Right? But it is interesting to me that the people, who know and care about performance, who know and care about all these elements that make a knife a usable knife, and a lot of times are not the demographic that utilize these innovations to their fullest extent. I've been thinking of a knife to get my dad. I want to get my dad another knife. Something in MagnaCut. I think MagnaCut would be great for my dad. Like I said, he has his knife in some horrible environments. Like his knife gets wet, it gets grimy, covered in blood, covered in water. It gets covered in all kinds of weird stuff. So I think the stainlessness of MagnaCut will be great. The edge retention will be good. A little bit of an upgrade from what he's been carrying recently. The toughness will be excellent. He really needs a good tough knife because, again, he does hard things to his knife. And, something that's, if I'm not around, that he could probably sharpen up, himself without, getting frustrated. Because, let's be honest, sharpening up well heat-treated M390 as a newbie sucks. It sucks, right? And then it gets a little bit better once you get better at sharpening, but it sucks when you're a newbie. And I've been thinking about getting my dad like a Hogue Deca MagnaCut, but I don't know. My dad doesn't really like the crossbar lock, so I'm looking for maybe something like that's more like more of a liner lock, frame lock, something not super expensive, but I don't know. If you have any suggestions, leave them down below if you made it this far in the video. I've got to try to wrap this up. But as you can tell, this is something I'm very, very passionate about. It's something I really, really care about because people deserve good knives. People really deserve good knives. And I think a lot of the reason that sometimes people don't carry a pocket knife is because they've been exposed to crap. My dad, before I gave him his severe backlash and stuff like that, he actually carried the exchange blade utility razors because for him, he noticed with like pocket knives he's carrying, the edge just didn't last at all. And so he'd rather just have something that he could, when it went dull, flip that little exchangeable blade around or just throw it away, grab a new blade. That's what he preferred to have. And then, of course, that introduced its own problems. Those things are typically kind of bulky. They're, they wear out pretty quick. You can snap those little razor blades. But that's what he carried because he just didn't trust another knife to hold an edge as well or to be as slicey. That was another thing. The pocket knives he was carrying before just didn't cut that good because the edge geometry sucked. When I gave him a properly made knife, he stopped carrying the razor blades and started carrying that. And it's, again, I'm just sharing my thoughts with you guys. This video might have been rambling. There might not have even been a point to this. You may have just watched, holy cow, 46 minutes of a nothing burger. This might have been just me sitting here on a Sunday afternoon spewing nonsense to a camera and a desk full of knives, rocks, and dinosaur toys. What is my life? But if you did make it this far, I want to hear what you guys think, Again, I'm not trying to disparage anyone. Like, me, for example. I mean, there are knives I don't use to their full potential. I'm an enthusiast who also uses knives. We exist. In fact, I believe that most enthusiasts fall in that category, We all have knives that we use to some extent or another. And again, there is definitely a price barrier between the working man. I don't know if that's the word I want to use, though, because it's not really an economical thing. It's more like just a mentality thing. But, obviously using 20 CV costs more than using 8 CR13. I get that. Absolutely. That is something that is non-trivial. And that's something that is an absolutely good reason to not buy a super expensive knife. But if you're going to be buying a cheap knife, it needs to be a good knife, right? You need to have a knife that's well made. I brought this knife out. I've been enjoying this knife, this little Schrade Divergent. Simple materials, G10, 8CR, nothing special. It's got a crossbar lock, though. It's a competently made knife. This is a knife that I like because it's not really an enthusiast knife. I think a lot of enthusiasts will be like, whatever, But as a user knife, I think it's really, really good. For an everyday type of guy, I think it'll be perfectly fine. And that's one of the reasons I try and do my Cheap Knife Week series, which we are working on. Actually, I've got a lot of stuff I'm working on for Cheap Knife Week, so I think you guys will be pretty excited. But that's one of the reasons I do those videos, because I want to get people interested in knives. I love giving knives to people. Right? I love giving knives to my friends and family and saying, hey, look, you need this, right? You didn't know it until just now, but you need this, right? And 9 times out of 10, they come back to me, months later, oh my goodness, thank you so much for the knife. I never knew I needed a pocket knife this much. Or it's, oh my goodness, thanks for the knife. This is so much better than all the other knives I've ever used. It's like, yeah, you're welcome, I know. I give knives to everyone. My sisters, my mom, my dad, my grandpa. I like to, my friends. I like to give knives to just everyone because, people need knives. And I had a point with this. Where was I going? What was I saying? Oh, yes, I remembered. I'm always trying to get people into knives. I'm giving knives to people all the time. I'm telling people, get a pocket knife. And I refer a lot of people to my channel. And, I have people come up to me and they ask me, they know I'm a knife guy. And they ask me, I don't make a secret of it, right? I don't make a secret of the fact that I'm a knife guy. And then they'll ask me for knife recommendations. And I like to give inexpensive recommendations. I mean, I would never, I had this friend. She came up to me and she's like, we've been out in the field a lot. She's a colleague of mine. I'm looking for a knife to have, for camping, just being outdoors and stuff like that. What kind of ass goblin would I be if I was like,
Oh, yes, well, if you want to get a knife worth anything, you need to spend at least $250. I would recommend a Spyderco Shaman in CPM M4 steel, and you're going to need to buy a entire sharpening rig for maintenance.
No, no, that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to do. And there is nothing scarier than someone who's taking their first tentative steps into a new experience or into a new genre of something. Someone taking their first steps into the knife community and they're bombarded with, oh yes, you need to get a Benchmade. Oh yes, you need to get a Spyderco, this, that, and the other. So I mean, gosh, I have recommended this knife to so many people because it's a knife I feel good about recommending. It's built well, it's safe, good knife, but it's inexpensive. And that is awesome. And so basically, I'm going to end this video by saying we need more knives that are built well, inexpensive, and accessible to the everyday Joe or Jill. So thank you so much for watching this video. I know I rambled and raved for way too long. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think? What's your favorite knife? How did you get into knives? How did you find this channel? I would love to hear down below. Share your stories with me. I love stories. So that's going to be it for today, guys. If you like this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Adios.